Welcome to Transformational Pathways, a podcast created by Toastmasters District 46 in the greater New York area, where we share conversations from influencers within the Toastmasters community and people whose lives have positively transformed by walking down the Toastmasters path. Whether you're just getting started in your career, have had recent career changes, or you're navigating different languages, we're here to help you build confidence by discovering new tools, overcoming your fears to find your voice, and engaging in a thriving community. Enjoy today's episode.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Toastmasters District 46 Transformational Pathways Podcast. I'm your host, Scott Mason, and walking the pathway with me today is our very special guest, Radhi Spear. Radhi is a senior application developer with none other than AT&T. And more importantly, she is the 2021 through 2022 second vice president of Toastmasters International itself. Congratulations, and Radhi, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Scott.
Second vice president of Toastmasters International. Toastmasters International is an organization with a reach across 6 continents. In fact, for all I know, there may be a new district opening up in Antarctica if it hasn't done so already. So it's possible that it truly is global in reach. This is a huge title in a huge organization. What exactly is a second vice president? It sounds so big, I don't even know what to say.
Well, Toastmasters International is a nonprofit organization, and they have a board of directors. So typically we have one international director from every region, and we have 14 regions. There are 14 international directors, and then you have an executive committee, and I just made it there as second VP. So there are 5 people on the executive committee, and I just got elected.
Congratulations. And so I want to make it clear, one of the things I love about Toastmasters is that it is truly a worldwide exercise in large-scale democracy. So you didn't just send in a job application and get this, did you?
No.
How exactly does one become a second vice president of an international organization like Toastmasters if you're not just applying like anybody else?
Yeah, so there is a long process because you need to have held several different positions before you could run for second vice president. So if I have to tell you my story, I guess I can start with how I started in Toastmasters. And
love it.
Or even before that.
That's good. Yes.
See, I grew up in Africa, in Lagos, Nigeria. I went there when I was about 3 years old, and I was there till I was about 12. And when I went to school there, my first grade teacher was this tall, big man, like a heavyset Denzel Washington.
Oh.
And I was very shy and very meek. And he would ask, just this first grade, he would say, stand up and answer the question. And I would just whisper. And he'd say, speak up. And I would whisper even more. But I mean, he was a very nice teacher, but I was a very shy kid. But I had a wonderful childhood, no complaints at all. But I clearly remember that teacher and how much he scared me, and I was just whispering. Well, I moved to India when I was about 12, and that was a culture shock because the kids all made fun of my accent. Since I'd grown up in Africa, I had a Nigerian accent, and my clothes were all different. So my family put me in a Catholic school, so I wore uniform and kind of blended in. But every time I opened my mouth, I sounded different.
Yeah.
And the kids made fun of me. And I remember I had this, they told me, why don't you take Sanskrit and Hindi because it's the same script, because you have to learn these Indian languages. And I clearly remember my Sanskrit teacher, she'd make all the children stand up and read. And I put on my best Sanskrit accent. I thought I was reading so well. And she would say, children, no laughing, no laughing. Okay, Go ahead, child, read. So I would be reading my Sanskrit and she'd be like, and I'm just picking some random book here.
Oh.
And then, okay, no laughing, everyone. Continue, child. So this was how it was in India. It was awful.
Where in India were you, by the way?
In Bangalore. I'm from Bangalore. Okay. So I tried very hard to acquire an Indian accent, overnight if I could to try and blend in. So, but then when I was 22, I came to the US for my master's in electrical engineering. I went to New Jersey Institute of Technology, and I was the only girl in my engineering class. And when the teachers figured that out, that's it. Oh, you there. Could you come up? Could you do this on the blackboard? Could you work out the thing? So I felt my whole life I was picked on as a kid in India, in the US. So then I get a job. And I'm thinking I have to show respect. I'm sitting quietly in the meetings. Then my boss calls me and says, do you understand what's going on? You don't say anything. And I'm like, no, I follow. But I would struggle to speak up. But then, luckily, I joined Toastmasters. And that was another thing. My sisters were the ones who said, you need Toastmasters. You better join. And I did. And now I have no issues giving feedback. I give feedback to my boss. I give feedback to my coworkers. I wish I'd found Toastmasters a lot sooner.
I love it. Let's step back a little bit. There's a lot of interesting things in what you said. We could talk for hours and hours and hours about it. Yeah. But let's just focus for a second. How did you end up coming to the U.S. in particular for your advanced schooling? Why did you not return home to Lagos, or why didn't you stay in India? How did the United States end up being the place that you landed?
Well, growing up, my father had been in the U.S. in Ann Arbor, Michigan. Oh. And he would tell us all these stories of what a wonderful country the U.S. was. He said, when you give your word, it's like a bond. Americans keep their word. This is, such a wonderful place. And you'd show us pictures. So I always had seen all these wonderful pictures of the U.S. So when I graduated engineering school in India, I got a job in Infosys. Actually, you could say it's like the Microsoft of India. It's become huge. It's sold on NASDAQ, but at that time it had just started in a small house in Bangalore City.
Amazing.
My sister was a doctor in the US and had just returned, and she told my dad, America is the land of opportunity, how wonderful it is. And he's like, yes, I remember, so nice. And he looks around his children. I'm the only one who's just graduated and I've got a job. And he's like, Infosys, who said this is a small company? I mean, who knew it would become so big? And he said, you should go to America. You should study. And then my mom says, wait a second. What do you mean you're sending her 10,000 miles? He's only 22. So I made a deal. I said, okay, tell you what, I'll go live with my sister and go to school. And my sister worked at UMDNJ in Newark, New Jersey. So that was the criteria. I selected New Jersey Institute of Technology, told my mom I'd live with my sister and go to school. And I applied, I got the visa, and I came. So that's how I chose the school.
Bam, here you are. Now, let's talk a little bit about that job experience that led you to Toastmasters. Why is it, you think, that you were so quiet when you were in that work situation?
Okay, so I think it was partly culture, because in India you show respect to people who are older than you. And also partly because Americans speak with such confidence. It's a little bit intimidating. And I have to step back a bit. Being a foreign student, I was desperate to get assistantship. So at one point, I was doing research assistantship for my professor. And he called me one day and he said, I'm sorry, I've lost my funding. And, being a foreign student, I'm like, what? How am I supposed to survive? And he says, you know what? Can you teach? Never taught in my life. I'm like, yes. So next thing I'm teaching undergraduates electromechanical energy conversion, E331. And so I was only in my 20s. I taught class and I thought, I could speak. But I left out this one story, Scott. I'm sorry, I got a million stories. But
we love them.
So when I first got this job, I wanted my parents to come. It was my dad's birthday, one of his milestone birthdays. So we thought we would celebrate. My sisters were all here in the U.S. And we said, let's have this occasion. And I said, you know what? I'll get the restaurant. I'll book the food. I was making all the arrangements. And my sister, the doctor, the one I was supposed to come live with, she said, you know what? After lunch, we'll all give a toast. I didn't pay any attention to that. I'm like, yeah, sure. All good. So it's a beautiful September day. All the guests came. The food was excellent. My dad was very pleased. Everything went beautifully until it was time for the toast. So then my oldest sister gives the toast. Then the next sister, and the next sister. It finally comes to me. I'm holding up the glass. My hands are all shaking and I'm like, to the best dad. One sentence. It was awful. Awful. And at that time, my two sisters who had come from India belonged to a club, a Toastmasters club in India. And they said, enough. You have to join Toastmasters. You better join Toastmasters. So it was my boss telling me to speak up, all those experiences in the past of people picking on me, my sisters telling me I needed it. So fortunately, a few years later, by sheer coincidence, they chartered a club in my office, and I'm a charter member of AT&T Middletown Toastmasters. So that's how I joined.
Amazing. Now, let me ask, do you know the name of the club or clubs in India that your sisters were part of?
Yeah, they belonged to Bangalore Toastmasters, and those days, they were not even a district. They were one of 7 clubs between India and Sri Lanka.
Really?
Now, yeah. They didn't know they didn't belong to a district. They didn't know anything. They just belonged to the club.
Well, we're going to make sure that when we push this out on social media, we give them a shout out. So all of their current members or anyone that might remember you, or your sisters, I should say, will be aware that they're being talked about halfway across the world. I absolutely love that. Now, talk to me about the club that just got chartered at the company you're working at and your very first Toastmasters meeting. Did you have any hesitation, by the way, about going to that Toastmasters meeting? Or were you like, okay, no, I'll just go?
No. I was very hesitant, but my sisters had told me and I'd promised them I'd go. So I did attend, and I quickly realized it's not a spectator sport. You can't just sit back and watch. They call upon you to come up and speak. And it's no fun initially, but I tell you now, I'm a true believer. I see the difference in people in 6 months. I have come a long way. I still have a long way to go. I'm the stereotypical engineer who's not good at speaking, but it has helped me tremendously. And I know this program works, and I want even more people to benefit from it.
I love the modesty about yourself as a speaker. I'm sitting here listening and watching. You've got tons of energy, but the modesty and the willingness to be open to constant feedback is a true power characteristic that folks who have been in Toastmasters a while have. What was your first speech, your icebreaker about? Do you remember?
Well, my icebreaker was about coming from India to the US and all the differences, because it's a huge change, the way life is in India as it is in the US. I remember going to the cafeteria, and my sisters had told me when I first came here, I didn't tell you this part. I had agreed to come to live with my sister, except that my sister joined the US Army and left for West Germany. So at that point, my mom is like, wait a second, the deal was you were going to go live with your sister.
Yeah.
So then my 2 uncles said, quick, pronto, get her married, right? Because in India, it only takes 2 weeks. I'm like, no, I'm going, I got my visa, I'm going. So I came here and I stayed in the dorm. So life was so different, because you see American movies in the theater, but actually living in America is very different. People come up to you, they're very confident. So, my mom had given me a ring, so I used to wear this ring. Guys would come up to me because I'm staying in the dorm, and I'm like, oh no, I didn't know what to do. So it was pretty, quite an experience living in the dorm, going to school in America, and dealing with all the changes.
I love it. I love it. Now, folks always say that there are 2 tracks in Toastmasters. There's the speaking contest track, and then there's the leadership track. You quite obviously have tracked as a leader. Is that where you imagined you would be when you joined Toastmasters, or is this a journey that you might not have expected for yourself?
It's completely unexpected. I only joined Toastmasters to become better at communicating. And I did take part in a few contests just because I was the club president and I had to lead by example. And I actually even made it to the district humorous speech contest.
Oh, congratulations.
That was a long time ago, 2003, I think. But To be honest with you, I took up the area director position. It was called area governor at the time, solely to get to DTM, because everybody says getting to DTM is what you need to do. And I wanted that DTM as well. So that was the only reason I took up the position. But then it opened my eyes. There's a world outside your home club. There's actually contests and people and activities. And so that opened my eyes, going to the area contest and then seeing all these other club members coming and speaking and so on. So then when somebody nominated me to be division governor, I'm like, all right, somebody thinks I can be division governor. So I still remember I went to the spring conference and my mentor met me and he says, Radhi, are you ready with your 2-minute speech? And I said, Nick, I'm unopposed. Why do I need a 2-minute speech? I'm good. And he's like, no, what if someone runs? And I'm like, nah, I'm good. So I'm sitting in the business meeting, and then you had 10 divisions those days, District 46. There were 10 divisions, and I was running for Division I. And they said, well, are there any nominations from the floor? Anyone wants to run from the floor? And then this person raises his hand. And I know he's a motivational speaker, and he wants to run from my division. And I'm like, oh no, I have to come up with a 2-minute speech before it's Division I's turn. So meanwhile, there's a guy sitting next to me. He nudges me and I look at him and I'm like, what? And he says, now's your chance. And I'm like, what? He says, give up. Somebody else is willing to do the work. Why do you want to run? And I'm like, no, I'm not going to give up. I'm going to I have time for my 2-minute speech. And I don't know, it was so funny, but for some reason, there was, in this Division B, there was someone named Robert. I still remember Robert Archdeacon running against Virginia Arana. And he gives his 2-minute speech and he says, my name is Robert Archdeacon and there's no S at the end of my name. And I'm like, who thought there was an S? What is this guy talking about? So then when it was my turn, I went up and I said, my name's Radhi Spear, and there's no S at the end of my name because Britney Spears was very popular at the time. and then I gave them some credentials, what I'd done as area director, and I got elected. And so then I became a division governor, and that was also an excellent experience. And then next thing I know, I was running for lieutenant governor of marketing and so on. So yeah, it was a fun journey.
I love it. Well, let's go back and talk about a few things. First of all, for anyone who might be listening to this and not understand all of the acronyms, what exactly is a DTM and what exactly is an area director? I didn't know what an area director was, by the way, until I was nominated to be one. So, but we'll pretend I didn't say that. Okay. Go ahead and answer the question.
DTM is the highest award you can get in Toastmasters. It's called a Distinguished Toastmaster Award. And so everyone works hard. It used to take on average, 4 to 6 years to get there. And it was quite prestigious. So you also have to do 1 year of district leadership, as they call it. So the way it is in Toastmasters is that you have all these clubs around the world, but then the clubs are grouped into areas. 4 to 6 clubs make an area. 4 to 6 areas make a division. 4 to 6 divisions make up a district. So I was in District 46 at the time, and later became district governor of District 46 before we split into 46 and 83. And then, subsequently again, District 46 split again. So they joke that I first had twins and then now I'm a grandma because 46 split again.
Well, we won't pursue that much further. However, we will step back a little bit because embedded is in what you said is something that I think I'm hearing, and that's important, if I'm hearing correctly, to pull out, which is that if you choose to join Toastmasters and then enter the leadership track, really what you're doing is in a safe space, practicing stepping up a corporate ladder in a truly international corporation. Is that correct, or am I just delusional here?
Scott, you're absolutely right. So everything in Toastmasters, it is all about experiential learning. You're learning by doing. And not only that, everybody there in your club is also having their own goals and trying to get there. But we give each other feedback, we support each other. So whether you are interested in your communication skills or leadership skills, we give you the opportunity and we give you the skills. So not only do you learn how to be a leader, we give you the opportunity to be an area governor, a division director is what we call it now. So you learn the skills and you have the opportunity to use the skills. It's a very safe place. And in my home club, we even allow our members, it always matches with one of the paths, one of the programs, that if they have a speech, because, for example, we used to have technical presentations in the past, but now too, we have those. So you can come practice in the club and you get feedback and then you use it in your work. So everything we learn in Toastmasters is not to be in Toastmasters, but to use it in everyday life. And these are skills that will be with you. It's an investment in yourself. As you started the show, you said, I work for AT&T. It's a very niche place where I work. I work on voice over IP. And, if I have to find another job with my skills, maybe it's Verizon or somewhere else. But the skills you learn in Toastmasters is general. It's what you need in everyday life, at home, at work, everywhere. So this is a skill that you take with you. It's always something that will benefit you.
Well, and it does raise yet another question within your answer to a question, which is you have this leadership experience, again, at an international scale. If you were to, for whatever reason, leave AT&T, and I'm not saying that you would, it sounds like it's an amazing place to work, but let's say you did. It sounds like you would have if you were interviewing, you might have developed along the way the language of a leader. You might have the poise and the presentation and the confidence of a leader. You might be able to utilize these in these experiences that you've had to be able to position yourself to advance your career. Or do you?
No, absolutely. You're absolutely right. We learn so many skills without even realizing, because you have so much fun at the club and at the area and the division. You're going to all these meetings, doing stuff, going on the weekends. But, you're helping others and you're helping yourself, because when you say you're a division director or one of the district directors, it seems like a lot of work and you're helping others, but it makes you feel good because you're growing with the experience. So absolutely, this is a win-win for all.
Has your self-conception changed as you have stepped further and further along the leadership path that you embarked on?
Absolutely. I never thought I would get this far. I'm still it's still sinking in. Let's put it that way. But what I realize is, and I don't want to generalize, but I can't help it, but I feel women sometimes underestimate themselves. They're really capable of so much. Maybe it's my mom would always tell us, you can do it. But yet it was easier said than done. But Toastmasters gives you that confidence. And I have to tell you this, as you're asking me how to get to the board of directors. So, after you're an area director and a division director, you could run for the positions of the district leadership. Once you complete being a district director, then you could run for international director. And I have to tell you, when I was international director and you visit all your districts, promoting Toastmasters, helping with marketing, I have to tell you, so many women have come up to me, especially minority women, and they see me and they're like, wow, if you can do it, I can do it too. And I always say, yes, you can. And it's wonderful to see that, because our organization gives opportunities to everyone. We cut across national boundaries. We welcome people of different cultures, different occupations. It doesn't matter where you're from. There's a home in Toastmasters for you.
And one of the things I like about District 46 in particular is that there are so many clubs, because it is in New York City, that you can find the club that's just right for you. Talk to me about some of your experiences with different clubs in District 46 during the time that you were involved with us.
Yes. So, well, in general, you have university clubs and college clubs that you could join while you're in school. And you have community clubs and what we call corporate clubs. Community clubs are just in a community. They meet in a library or in a church. Corporate clubs are like my AT&T club, for example. I know when I was district governor, we chartered so many in New York City. I mean, we used to get so many leads. The company used to see that as an investment in their employees. And it's really a win-win, because if their employees can communicate better, get their point across better, it helps the company. And just think about it too, like when you're in college and you and your friend are applying for a job, if both of you have a similar skill set, similar resume, but one of you is better at getting your point across and being able to articulate, you have a leg up. So why not invest in yourself? So yes, absolutely. New York City has all kinds of clubs, and we have advanced clubs and clubs specializing in different aspects. Anything that you're interested in. Perhaps you're interested in photography. Perhaps you're interested in cooking. Perhaps in debate. Whatever you could find a club. And I heard that you're in a podcasting club. So there you go.
I am. And I feel like that goes as to exactly what you're talking about. The Podcast Pioneers, which is the podcasting club that District 46 has, that is open to Toastmasters from anywhere who have gone past level 1 in their Pathways curriculum. Helps build skills in what is truly becoming the dominant form of audio and to some extent video communication right now that's emerging. Radio versus podcasting. Podcasting appears to be winning out, and it's breaking through a lot of barriers. So it is one more opportunity that's creative, that allows people to figure out how to get their voice out. And creativity is another thing that I was surprised by Toastmasters exhibiting. Did you have any opportunities in your journey as a leader to really bring creativity to the table? If so, tell us some stories.
Well, I don't think I'm a very creative person, but I've seen
that.
I have seen so much creativity. For example, because of this pandemic, we had to go online overnight, practically the whole world. Yeah. And we are now learning new skills. And like you were saying with this podcasting pioneers, we are online and we are learning these skills. We are learning to meet online, train online, webinars online, podcasts online, right? And these are all the skills we need for the new tomorrow. Companies are realizing, hey, I can get as much productivity from you working at home. And now I know how to run a meeting online. I know how to present online. And I don't know if you watched, for example, the first year we had an entirely online international convention. And if you go back and watch that first place contender, Mike Carr, he uses the entire screen. I mean, I'm just sitting right now, but he comes from the side, he goes up. I mean, it's just amazing. They're so creative. And I'm like, wow, why didn't I think of that? But, this is the beauty of Toastmasters. Just by watching, you can learn. Just observing someone and you can even observe and say, oh, I shouldn't do that. That's annoying. Or I should do that. That's a good thing. So just observing, we learn so much, and trying it out ourselves. And like you were saying, it's a very safe place.
Now, you've touched on something we haven't really discussed in this podcast so far. Okay. And I kind of can't believe it. I need to hold myself accountable for that. So give me feedback about it after the fact, which is the International Convention. As of the date of this recording, the International Convention was in the very, very recent past, and people who might have signed up for it are still watching parts of it because it's available to those who might not have been able to make it through online means. Talk to us a little bit about that International Convention and what it's meant for you and how it could be of benefit to someone who might be considering Toastmasters but really isn't sure.
Yes, so until 2 years ago, we used to meet in person in August, and it was typically in the third week of August, mostly in North America, but for the first time, they did have it in Kuala Lumpur, I think in 2016. And so this is a fun time. We all know it's always the third weekend in August, more or less, and everyone marks their calendars. They tell you in advance, 1, 2, 3 years in advance. And when you go to the international conventions, you see people from all over the world. And even though you meet them just once a year, they are your friends, and then they become friends on Facebook, and you're emailing and doing things. And you learn so much. It really widens your perspective. You hear all these stories. I mean, Toastmasters is growing in the Middle East. We're growing in South Africa. We're growing in West Africa. I mean, you name a place, we are really growing. And it's just amazing to hear their stories. When I first got onto my very first online meeting, this is before the pandemic.
Yeah.
This woman was giving a speech in Mali. This is the middle of Africa. And she was standing outside her compound wall to give the speech because she said that's where she got the best Wi-Fi. But it was just amazing that we could reach so far. And so it's a lot of fun. And especially on the opening ceremony day, they encourage you to wear the the dress of your country of origin. So you'll see people dressed up in all these different dresses and attire, and they walk down holding the flags, and it gives you a sense of pride, like we are really in all these countries. And I think Dr. Smedley, our founder, always said that with more communication comes understanding, and as we get to know people from around the world and understand them better, I think it'll lead to more understanding and more world peace, because we're all humans, we're all trying to do well, and we're all there helping each other.
Yeah. I will just say this about the International Convention. I went to the last one that occurred before the lockdown. And I just personally want to endorse what you're saying. I met earlier this evening. I had a meeting with someone from Colorado that I met there. We met once. We had dinner, just randomly meeting there, and we're in touch to this day. Everything that you're saying is true. I absolutely love it. Thank you for that. Now, you are second vice president. What exactly will the second vice president be doing 2021 through 2022? Tell us and tell us all.
Yeah, so the second vice president, as I said, is part of the executive committee. And what we do is we look at policy. Is there any changes we can make, any improvements we can make to make Toastmasters even better for our members, to try and see what all needs to be done. So we have a packed agenda. Like when I was running for this position, so many districts gave me their feedback, because the key is feedback to improve. How can we improve pathways? That's our educational program. How can we improve our marketing? How can we attract more members? What is it that we can do? So there are a lot of things to be considered and examined, and even our current program, how we can improve, how can we make it better, and so on. So that's what we work on at the executive level there.
I imagine a young woman who's just starting out my career and hearing this and seeing on YouTube or listening on Spotify or Apple or whatever platform, this impressive Ms. Spear. I don't know if I can be that person. What would you tell her or him that you've learned along your Toastmasters journey that they can take away from this conversation and think about and maybe use to benefit their lives or their professional growth?
Yeah. So the one thing in Toastmasters, and I've seen it even with Pathways and even online, I just had one member who only joined my club after the pandemic and Pathways, and I saw the transformation in that person. Our program really works. There's no reason to reinvent the wheel. There's no reason to try something else. Our program works. We've been in existence close to 96 years now.
Yeah.
And I tell you, Dr. Smedley was onto something there, because we all, ours is the only organization dedicated to the individual. We use the skills to help each other and then move on. We don't care about the stock price. We don't care about the stock market. It's nothing. It's just to help each other. And if they join, if they are worried about a upcoming job interview or worried about the future, doesn't matter what it is, they want to start their own business, they want to join a company, your self-confidence will increase. You will be a better you if you join Toastmasters. And I tell you, I've met so many people. The two things you always hear, this is the best kept secret, and I wish I found it sooner. I'm sure you've heard that too, Scott. Those are the two things you hear all the time from Toastmasters.
I haven't just heard it. I've said it.
Yes.
And I've felt it.
Yeah.
Talk to us about how you see your future. What is next?
Well, the way it works is that once you get elected to second vice president, it's a 5-year commitment, actually, because the following year, you typically end up being the first vice president, then international president-elect, then you become international president and immediate past president. And I love this organization, and I would like it to be there for even more people. We are in very challenging times with COVID. We've lost so many members. Yes. And of course, I'm not, I always tell the district leaders, if people are ill or sick, first we show compassion and empathy. Yes, but absolutely. If you have a job, if you have food on the table and a roof over your head, you need Toastmasters. If you're sick or something, we will talk Toastmasters later after you get better. But this is something that they can use that will help them. And like I said, we're learning new skills now because of the pandemic and all skills that are needed. So.
I really feel you. Toastmasters has made me the man that I am today. It has truly transformed me. That's why I was so proud to be a part of this podcast. I am so proud to have had the chance to talk to you. But before we close out, I'm going to zing you with a couple of questions.
Okay.
Who is your favorite leader? Who is your favorite speaker? Two separate people, perhaps. And why?
Well, when I read the autobiography of Mahatma Gandhi, who helped, India get independence.
Yeah.
Do you know that he studied law in England, came back to India, and he got a case in Bombay, now called Mumbai. And when he went up to speak and he saw the people, he froze. He couldn't say a word, went back to his seat, gave the money back and said, I'm sorry, I can't do it.
Wow. I never heard that story.
Yeah, he couldn't. And so then this other company hired him and said, could you just help us write our briefs? You don't have to speak. And they were this company in South Africa. And so he went there to just, writing. He didn't have to speak. But over time, he realized the injustice being done to Indians and he learned to speak. So I admire the fact that he couldn't speak and yet he was able to overcome it. I wish he'd found Toastmasters. We weren't there in India at the time when he got us independence in 1947. Toastmasters came to India only later. But I'm always impressed that one man could make such a difference in our lives and get a country independence. And so, yes, he is who I admire.
I can only imagine the changes that Gandhi would have made if he had Toastmasters on top of everything else.
Yes.
It's mind-boggling to contemplate. Yeah. I have thoroughly enjoyed the conversation. I want to thank you so much for joining us. If you were to give a shout out to any club in particular, what would that club be, or what would those clubs be? Oh, and by the way, let me ask you one other thing that reminds me of. Are you sort of implying that if we're traveling around to other countries or other parts of the United States, we can just drop by other Toastmasters clubs and meet new people and make new friends?
Absolutely. So, as you mentioned, Scott, we are in 143 countries. We are over 15,000 clubs. And that's, when I collect dues from my members, I'm the treasurer, by the way, of my home club. I always tell them, don't worry, if you move, if you transfer, if you get a job somewhere else, I will find you a club there. And if you don't have a club there, I will help you start a club. So this is to anybody and everybody, no matter where you are. If you cannot find a club, we will help you find a club. And if there is no club close by, you can start a club. And no matter where you go, we call Toastmasters our extended family. Everybody has similar views. We always think of Toastmasters as family. They're always there to help you. Very nice people. So please take advantage of this. Toastmasters is anywhere and everywhere, and help us start clubs if you don't have a club close by. And now being online, there's no problem. We can get all the support that you need.
And with that sort of expansiveness, I wouldn't be surprised if there's an international space ship club opening soon. Because, right, why limit ourselves to Earth?
Exactly. Exactly.
Radhi, it has been great having you on the show today. Thank you so much for joining us and sharing your story and your energy. Now, for those of you who are listening or watching, if you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe and leave a review or a comment on YouTube. And don't forget to follow District 46 on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter. And if you're new to Toastmasters or looking to join, check out Toastmasters46.org. That's Toastmasters46.org to learn more about us or to visit one of our clubs. Because Toastmasters, as you, Radhi, can prove, is where leaders are made.
Thank you so much for joining us on Transformational Pathways. If you enjoyed today's episode or got anything out of it, please rate, review, and subscribe. And if you're interested in learning more about Toastmasters District 46, check out the link in the show notes below.